Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the stream. This is my Pikachu art stream. I'm going to be going through how to draw Pikachu today, and this is an exercise to primarily talk about splitting up an object into shapes and kind of getting the hang of how to draw that object based on how it's split up into shapes, how to think about that object as kind of a projection of a 3D object into 2-space, and then how to kind of use this dissection into shapes to then go a step further and draw an object in a different position than your reference image, or possibly even make a new character based on the original. So today we're going to be using Pikachu as a character model, and so I'm going to go ahead and just search up Pikachu, and we're just going to find just some basic image of Pikachu standing or sitting. It doesn't really matter too much. Already found one, and we'll see if this copies in or if it gives me a nasty black background. We'll see. There we go. Alright, so that'll be our reference. And let me go ahead and remove my title bar, go full screen. Great. So, what we're going to start off doing is we're going to start looking for shapes. And so I'm just going to draw right on top of the image itself because we aren't actually tracing. What we're doing is we're analyzing what shapes this object is made of. So, and welcome Fories. What we're going to do is, I'm going to switch to kind of a blue color for my pen, just because it kind of contrasts against the yellow a little better. And so the first shape in here, if you notice, is there is a nice circle for the head. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Again, you're just kind of, the goal here is to just figure out what shapes it's made of. If we go down a little bit, you notice that we kind of have more of an oval for the body. And again, you kind of want to leave this space. You want to kind of split this into two different segments. The reason being that one of these is going to serve as more of the torso, whereas one's going to serve as more of the chest. And whenever you're thinking about that in 3-space, you're going to want to be able to kind of rotate, or like if he tilts to the side, you know, if you try to make this all one piece, it's going to be really hard to visualize that in the future. So a good way to do this is to kind of split this up into, instead of just one piece, you make it two pieces with, and we'll make that, let me undo and make that just kind of like that. So you have almost like a square here connecting these two circles. And you see that fits pretty nice. Now for the ears, we're going to simplify this. I can do a little bit better, into triangles. So you've got a triangle here, and you've got a triangle here. And don't worry about it not one-to-one. We'll worry about kind of fleshing this out in a second. And now we've got the tail, which is really interesting because it's kind of this lightning bolt pattern. So what I would recommend doing is just split it into individual segments. So you've got a square here, you've got a square here, you've got a square here, and you can even make them overlap if it's easier. There are no real wrong answers here. It's just what is easier for you. Square here and a square here. And the main thing to kind of keep in mind here is, you know, you basically have 1 turn, 2 turn, 3 turn, 4 turn. So just kind of keep that in your head whenever you're doing things. And then like the ears for the feet, we'll just make those, for now, triangles that are kind of coming off of it. Now, what I would do from here is we need to kind of start thinking about this in terms of 3D before we start trying to kind of flesh it out and make it a little closer to our reference. The reason is, you know, these ears are not just flat on the head. There's actually they're kind of a 3D shape that's kind of pivoted on top of another 3D shape. In doing things this way, it will help you, in the long run, kind of visualize your characters, and your characters will appear less flat in the long run. Excuse me. So, we're going to start by dissecting our head into a 3D shape. So the head's going to be a sphere, and we're looking at this straight on, like the camera is just straight on, meaning that you're just going to kind of do this and maybe put a very, very slight contour. You're not going to have anything too crazy though, because like I said, it's basically straight on. And same thing with this. Oh, and I forgot the arms. We'll get to those in just a sec. The arms, like most other things, I would start by making them squares. And again, we'll add the little bits in a sec. And then same thing with this. And it is important to realize these are not flat shapes, these are actually three-dimensional. But we'll get to that in a second. And then for this, now these are cones. Or you're going to make them kind of more of a cone shape. Also, it should be noted that at this point we're kind of moving down. So if you're thinking about things from perspective, your center is about right here. Which means that if you think about this kind of like a movie scene, that's where your camera's pointing. So you imagine you have like a camera screen, and I'll erase that in a sec. You know, your camera's going to be focused here, and so anything kind of towards the bottom, you're going to start looking more of towards, you know, like you're looking at it from above, and anything above that, it's almost like you're looking at below. And so you'll see a little more contouring based on that. So for this, we're going to put some very slight contours, and same thing with this. Now, and then same thing for these. You're going to put some very, very slight contours, and same thing for this. And for the tail is kind of flat. So we're not going to do too much to that because this is more of a flat. If you want to kind of represent it as a 3D, you can put some very, very slight contours to kind of make it a grid. But do keep in mind, for the most part, this is kind of a flatter shape. Okay, so now that we've got that, let's talk about some of these smaller pieces. So, for example, you see his cheeks kind of overlap. So we've got a little bit of an overlap, and whenever you're going to be drawing this character, you want to make sure that the head kind of connects to the body. And so if you take into account that we've got 3D shapes here, what is actually happening is you've got the shoulders and the neck, and so you kind of, if you extend it out, it's almost like this. So you've got like your shoulders and neck, and then this goes into this. And then you've got, if you want to split this into a hand, like if it's easier for you to visualize that, you just got some very fine little fingers attached to the end of the hand, like that. Oh, and zone in for a sec, but welcome Shiny and Lunala, and welcome to that Fast Fullerton. Alright. So, and then same thing for the feet and the legs. So for this, we're going to kind of just flesh it out, and same thing here. This is going to be kind of creating more of like a haunch shape, so kind of just keep that in mind. And again, a lot of this kind of simplifies you whenever you're doing a rough draft, or whenever you're kind of dissecting an object like this, you end up making a lot more lines than you probably need, just because you're trying to understand how the shape actually looks in 3 space. Because like I said, you're kind of projecting down to 2 space. And so you got to kind of think of it in terms of, okay, if this were actually like an object in the world, what would it look like? And then you can, once you understand that, you can kind of understand what parts are showing and what parts are not. So For the feet, these are kind of cones, but then, you know, you kind of have a little bit more of a rounded shape. So it's more of a rounded cone, and same thing for here. They've got like it's not just a flat cone, it's got like a tiny little bit of like a bulge to it. So just keep that in mind. And so, just like the hands here, you just add like a couple of little strokes, and you're good. So at this point, and then same thing with the tail, you're going to want this to be a little bit rounded at the top, so that's just something to keep in mind. You notice that the bottom is kind of straight. You don't have to do a lot with that, and you can actually do some pretty cool things with the tails. So once we kind of start extending this in the last half of the tutorial, I'll show you that, you know, you don't really have to just do one-to-one. Once you kind of understand how this works, you can give your character a little bit of personality and make it a little unique. So, with that, let's talk about some of the facial stuff. So, if you take a side view of Pikachu, and I mean if you have any animal, this isn't necessarily flat. Like honestly, you probably could have like a little line because this sticks out a little bit. So what you probably want to do is just kind of make a mental note that you got something like this. And so on this, you know, you've got its mouth, and then you've got the nose. And what I mean by that is, like, if we were to take this from a side view, I'm going to draw it really, really light from the side. So we would have this, but then if you look at a view of Pikachu from the side, normally you have something like this, so there's like a little bit of a jut out. And again, this has to do with some anatomy and everything. So let me try to find a picture of that real quick, just so I can see, or I can show you guys what I'm talking about. And try to find a side view of him. Bear with me. Or at least some kind of picture to where you can see what I'm talking about a little bit better. Something that's not just front. Actually, what if I just do... Oh, here we go. There we go. And this is someone else's, so I'm just going to flash it up for a sec, but yeah, this is what I'm talking about. See, it's like you've got that flat bit, and then you've got a little bit of a part jutting out. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, a lot of this has to do with kind of understanding how something looks in 3 space. Normally animals don't just have a perfectly round head. They've got a snout that kind of juts out a little bit from the body, and then depending on what kind of animal it is, whether it's a fox or a cat or what have you, that snout will kind of jut out more or less. Pikachu is a rodent, and so rodents normally don't have an incredibly long snout. Yes, yes, Rocky, it's there are a lot of shapes in a mouse type. So, let me back out a lot of this so we can get back to our shape. And so with that, this will also do something else. If you kind of draw out this little cage here for the mouth, yes, Fullerton, that's okay. Art is a learning process, and just try to pick up what you can, and you can always practice later. And I'm also recording this, and it'll be on YouTube if you need to rewatch. This cage, though, will also kind of help you map out the rest of the facial features, like the eyes and the cheeks. So you see the cheeks go almost up to the cage. And then same thing with the eyes, they're right at about this pivot point. So you can just put those like that. Again, we don't have to be super precise. We're all just learning how to split this up. And then same thing with the ears, you just draw a really quick little stroke like that. And then same thing with this, just at that very bottom turn, we've got that. And so now we've kind of dissected what Pikachu looks like. But, okay, what do you do with that? Alright, so now we're going to turn the ref off. I'm going to make a new layer. And let's say I wanted to draw a Pikachu in a different pose now. Like, let's say, you know, at this point we've analyzed what or how to draw a Pikachu, and we want to take that a step further. So let's say I want to do something like him holding on to a balloon. Well, I would start off with something that, you know, in animation we call it the line of action. So what the line of action is it's a line that traces the path to through what your character's doing. So since he's holding a balloon, we've got an arm up in the air. That's where the line of action is going to start. We go through the body and all the way down the spine. And actually, I said I was going to not use any Photoshop features. I'm not using too much, but I drew my line of action down too far. There we go. Position it back in the center and back to brush. Okay, so this is going all the way down to the leg. So we've got one arm up in the air, and then we've got through the body, down the spine, and down into the leg. So with that, that means that we want our head to be about right here. So we are going to start by drawing a circle. We're going to draw it a little bit smaller. And if you remember, the next thing we had is kind of down here, we had an oval. And you may have to draw it a few times. And again, this is going to be kind of rough. Don't worry about it. That's what second and third drafts are for. And then we had our square. And now if you remember for the arms, our line of action is raised up this time. For the arms, we had squares. So I'm just going to draw a square, and this time I'm going to draw it up. And the thing about movement and animation is when one arm's doing something, normally the other arm is kind of counterbalancing. So if he has one arm up in the air, that means the other is going to be kind of down. And we're going to make it not only down, but kind of pointing in the opposite direction, so it's going to be kind of outstretched. And now for his feet, if you remember we said triangles, so we're going to have one foot also outstretched, and then one foot is going to be up like that. And again, we're just doing triangles. So far so good, all simple shapes. And for the ears, I actually liked that pose where we had one ear kind of up and then one ear kind of down. So we'll go ahead and keep that. And then we'll get to the what I call the fancy features in a minute. And then if you remember, we had 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And we'll let it go ahead and flip off the screen. And so this is what I was talking about with personality. So I like to give my tail a little bit of personality, so I'm not going to draw it quite as rigid. I'll go ahead and square it out, but I kind of give mine more of a dramatic swoosh than he actually has. It's just one of my little personality ticks I give my Pikachu. Alright, and I'm really trying to stick to the shapes here, so then we got the square, and we will, if you remember, there was kind of a rounded top, so we'll get to that in a sec. So okay, now as you can see, we have something that very much looks like the same shapes that we had for Pikachu. Now if you remember, we also had that cage. Alright, so like I said before, this cage is going to kind of help us with our facial features. So at the very top of the cage we have his nose, And for the mouth, I'm going to do my mouth a little different. So we're going to still have that mouth like that, but his mouth is going to be open this time. So we're just going to do that. And then we've got the cheeks were about right here. And then the eyes were about right here. And always feel free to undo and redo if you need to. That's the beautiful thing about digital. If you're doing this on pen and paper, you may have to utilize your eraser a little bit. It's okay though. There we go. And again, don't worry about the eyes looking perfect right now. It can be a little goofy looking. This is just a rough draft. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start, we've got all the basics here. We're going to start kind of cleaning stuff up. Now, if you remember, whenever we did our reference, Pikachu's head kind of has like a little bit of a bulge like that, like it's kind of connected to the body. And same thing over here. It kind of goes into the body a little bit, so we're going to do that. Okay, and again, you want to think of this from body shape, so he does have kind of a shoulder, and it's just kind of wrapping around, so connect that to the arm. For the hand, we're going to pop one finger out, and then just, like the other hand, just some really fine little lines. Now for this one, his finger is most likely going to be like that. Draw some triangles, because he's going to be holding on to balloons. We're going to be lazy and we're going to cheat, so they're off the screen. Does look silly. It's the point though. This is learning to draw. Things will look silly for a while. Okay. And then just kind of connect. Okay. Now, go ahead and round out the foot. And draw 3 lines. And again, normally what you would do is you would do a couple more drafts to kind of clean things up, just so this isn't so chaotic. The point of the first draft is really just to get that first initial shape of what your thing is going to look like. Alright, and so now we're going to clean up the... Yes, he is exactly the kind of Goofy Chew you'd find craving a balloon. Alright, and we're going to make him a little more goofy in a sec. Okay. So, and then the last thing we need to do, we're going to round out the ears just a little bit. Like so. There we go. Alright, and so now we can start adding a little more personality to it. So I'm going to, at this point we've pretty much created a Pikachu, and as you can see, you know, it's a different pose than what we started with, but it very, very much, just by utilizing, breaking it down to shapes, and using the same shapes that we started out with, you can see that we were able to very quickly and easily make a totally new pose, no sweat. So now the next step would be kind of, like I said, adding a little bit of flair or personality. So I'm going to create a new layer, excuse me, and I'm going to change colors so that we can go ahead and you can see the little personality bits. And I work in a lot of different colors normally whenever I do a drawing or a piece of art, just because it kind of helps me stay clear. It does a couple of things. It helps me keep clear what I'm doing, first off, and second off, if you ever need to step back, like I'm okay with what I've got, like I like what I've got. It's a little rough, but this is a really good starting point. And I would want to keep that in case I need to move back or to, take a step back and do something else, like if I mess up going forward. So I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer just so that I can't draw on it. And from here on, we're going to be adding some of the personality stuff using a different color. So for me, I always add like a little like fur fluff on the head just because I think it's cute. So there. And again, we're being really, really rough. So there we go, we added a little bit of fur. And now, let's say, I like giving my characters scarves and things like that, so we're going to give him a bandana. And so for this, this involves something called draping, and for a long time this eluded me. And it's a little bit of an advanced concept, so what you have to do for draping is you've got some shape. In this case, you got a triangle. And now you kind of have to figure out or think about how this is wrapping around the body. So what you've got is you're going to, you think about, you've got this triangle shape like this. This side is going to be kind of bunched up because his arm is going to be kind of pushing it up. So you're going to have kind of it coming down like this. And then this part's going to be a little more relaxed, so you're going to have a bunch of lines. You're going to have a lot of tension around the neck because you've got this point and this point right here, which are actually going to be pulling it. Like you've got this shoulder curve, and it's going to be kind of riding up over the shoulder because your shoulders move. Basically, anywhere you've got a moving point, you're going to have the fabric kind of move or kind of not congeal, but like it's gonna want to kind of go up to that point. So what that means is you're gonna end up with a lot of lines like this, and then as we get further down, it's gonna get a little more relaxed. And again, it's gonna be a little asymmetric because you've got this arm is really gonna be pulling up on this and forcing it to bunch up right there. And so you just make some really light lines, and just like that. And again, in subsequent drafts you can clean this up. Right now we're just trying to kind of get the base shape and just kind of, play around with it. There's not really a right or wrong answer here. Again, you just kind of play around with it until it gets the way that you think it should look. Maybe do one more down there. There we go. And just like that, we've got a nice bandana. And again, might want to, think of this from a three space perspective. You might want to kind of add a little bit more here to where it actually looks like it's kind of wrapping around. The bandana's not 2D. And so, at that point we've got a little bit of personality, and you know what? Maybe he's kind of rebellious, or like he's been in some fights or stuff, so he might even have, like, let's go ahead and give him like a tiny little rip on the tail. Like he's got some battle scars or something. There we go. Alright, and so now, we've got that. And you could very easily add in a background, like you could add in some clouds or anything, but at this point there's a lot going on, and what comes next? So how do we go from this to kind of cleaning it up a little bit? And I'll go ahead and do my next draft just because, I originally planned a 2-hour block. I didn't think it would take that long, but I wanted to give enough time to, so we have time to go ahead and start doing this next block. So for my second draft, I normally do pink, and this is kind of normally the last step I do before I do a lot of stuff in Adobe Illustrator. So after my pink layer, I do some cleanup, and then from that point shift it over to Illustrator to do the coloring just because it's easier. So I'll go ahead and do my cleanup layer here. So for the cleanup, what you want to do is you've got all this stuff here, like there's a lot of really good stuff. The goal with the cleanup layer is to kind of move this more from a really rough draft, which is what we have now, into more of a final drawing to really kind of eliminate some of these guidelines. So I'm just going to start top to bottom. So we're just going to trace the outline. And went a little too cavalier on that. And then for this, okay. All right. And so now what we have something really interesting because we have that cheek shape, but now we've got a bandana. So we're just gonna pop that into there. There we go. And I normally cheat a lot, like I normally use the mirror tool quite a bit, but I did want to do this as kind of close to pen and paper as I could get, just for the people following along on pen and paper or who aren't as familiar with some of the fancier tricks. I wanted to make this fairly easy to follow along. Okay, and there we go, there we go. Alright, and we're not going to do those lines. I like that little thing right there, that looks really cool. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. I think that's enough. Alright, now coming up to here, and we're going to smooth out the fingers now. There we go. And now we're going to make this more of a single shape. We're not going to do that. Actually, I realized his arm is more in the way than I initially had it. It's okay, this kind of stuff happens sometimes. So there we go. And then just draw like that. There we go. Alright, and so for this, we're going to say his arm's more behind him. So we're going to look at where our, and this is where what I was talking about with 3-space. You really need to think of this more in like a 3D perspective. So if we have if we were to draw our lines like this, and I'm going to erase these in a sec. The arm, so this arm is tilted forward, so you can think of it as it's kind of rotated. So this arm is tilted forward, which since this arm is tilted forward, this arm is going to be tilted back. And of course you could have both arms forward, but again, this is kind of that animation thing I was talking about, where if you're doing one thing with one arm, you need to kind of do like it's kind of counterbalance. You want the other arm to be doing a little bit of the opposite. So in this case, that arm's going to be behind the body. And so I'm going to remove my lines here. So we're going to clip off the arm to where it's like that. And then we're going to have that thumb out, and then we're going to exaggerate the fingers a little bit more just so they're a little more separate. There we go. And then go ahead and once again, the foot would be kind of under the body here, so you're going to let that overlap. And we're going to draw down here. There you go. And final line, like that. Once again, you're going to do that, and you're going to have that little, there's a tiny little arch there. And now you're going to have, same thing this time though, the foot's going to go over the body. Like that. And then like that. And I'm going to go ahead and go a little off script here just because, like I said, I really love making the tail a little more dynamic. So, I'm going to make it a little more exaggerated here, just because I think it looks cooler. And we're going to remember our that little rip we did in the tail. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, like that. There we go. So adjust a little bit. And finally, don't want to forget, these are going to be in front. And go ahead and do our lines for our balloons there. And now if we turn off these layers, ta-da! And so just like that, you see, when you split something up into shapes, you get a really good foundation to kind of build on. And that's really what it's all about. And from there, you can start adding stuff as needed. Like if I wanted to add a background now, you just pop a layer on. And I mean, like I said before, it'd be really easy to make a really simple little background. Like for example, let's say we wanted to do clouds. Clouds are pretty easy. For a long time they eluded me, but you just start by making like a circle. You don't quite finish it. And then you draw like another little circle. And another one. And eventually you get to a point where you're like down here. And when you get to the bottom of it, you just kind of do that. And the same thing here. Actually, you want to stagger them. That's kind of the secret I've found to clouds is don't just make a crap ton because then it looks kind of weird. You want to kind of stagger things a little bit. So we're going to round that one out and then, yeah, like that. And then another really cool thing that I've seen done is I call these Kirby clouds because you used to see it in the old Kirby games. So you just draw a little circle out to the side of the cloud like that. It looks pretty cool. And then, you know, if you want, you could throw a sun up here. And just like before, so now we go back, now that we've got our environment, you go back to the pink layer, and I'm going to cheat to get my color and use the eyedrop tool. And so now we're going to lock the environment layer so that I don't accidentally draw on it, because I will. I know myself. And so now we're going to just, and by the way, it is fully, when you're doing these subsequent graphs, like sometimes you'll be drawing things and all of a sudden you'll be like, I know that's wrong. If that ever happens, just feel free to kind of improvise on the layer. Like you don't have to go 100% with what was there originally. Like for instance right here, I think it'd be better to just leave that like that. Like we don't really need that bottom one that looks a little bit weird, at least from my perspective. There we go. There we go. Yes, make sure I didn't draw into Pikachu. Nope, just like that. That's what I was worried about. Okay, arm and right there, and right there. And finally the sun up here. And yeah, just like that, we've got our background. Alright, so normally this would be where I pull into Illustrator to color, but let's say that you wanted to color this in Photoshop. Well, it's just a matter of doing another layer, but I'll give you guys a little tip. And let me pull up pen and kind of get this, because we do have like a lot of time. We're in no way, shape, or form hurting for time. Okay, get my brush size a little bit. Alright, so one of the big tips I'll give you guys about coloring things is, number one, I work in layers, and number two, I never use black, because unless the color that I'm coloring is black, and the reason being is black is, in my opinion, it's a little bit too stark of a color. It tends to really draw your focus, and it tends to dominate. So because of that, I don't work in black very often. So for example, for these clouds, I'm going to switch my colors to hue saturation. And for the clouds, I normally use kind of like a light blue. And so we'll do the environment first. So we're going to just outline our clouds. And I'm going to be working in another layer, so I'm just going to turn the environment back on. Here we go. And very important, so I use the pencil tool, not the brush tool. And the reason I do that is the pencil tool does not have any anti-aliasing on it, which is where it makes the edges of the lines fuzzy, if you're not familiar with that term. So if I zoom in, you can see it doesn't, like here's what the brush does. See how it kind of blurs with the background, and the pencil does not. The reason I do that is it makes it easier to color. And at the end, if you really want that blur, you can blur it manually, just like 1 or 2 pixels, and you'll get pretty comparable effect. So, or you can use a glow effect to add it in if you want to get really, really precise. The point here being that there are other ways to get that effect that make it way easier. It makes it way easier to color if you use the pencil, and you can get that effect anyway, so that's why I'm doing this. Okay, so we went ahead and made our cloud layer. So really quick, we're going to color this. So I'm going to crank up my color to kind of a light blue, and I'm going to switch to the paint bucket. Oh, didn't get that one apparently. I've got a, aha, I see it. I'm going to steal my color back. And right here, you want to make sure there are no gaps whenever you're trying to fill, otherwise it will escape. There we go. That one, that's, actually I did that wrong. That's our sun. So for the outline for the sun, I'm going to do kind of an orange, kind of a lighter orange, because I'm going to have a lighter yellow. And then switch to lighter yellow. And at this point, all I'm doing is just colors. There's nothing mystical going on here. I'm just doing colors. And I'll go ahead and pop Pikachu over the front, because we're going to need that outline in a sec. And then for the sky, so there's a couple ways you can do the sky. You can either do just a flat color, and for now, because the other way is using gradients. And I'll show you how to do that, but that's a little bit more of an advanced thing. I'm on the wrong layer, I told you. That's just why I lock my layers, because I'll do it every single time. And we'll disable this. So this is the first way to do sky, and it's okay. It gets the job done. But there is a much better way to do that. And so the better way to do that is to use a gradient. So for a gradient, it'll vary depending on whether you're using Krita or Photoshop. Both should have it. And don't feel like you need to absolutely do this right now. Like I said, I am recording this video, so for now just know you can do this, and then after the video is over, feel free to actually go look up how to do a gradient in your respective program and do what I'm fixing to tell you. So we're going to do this, and right now it looks really weird. I promise you this will make sense eventually. And we're going to reverse it because you want the light on bottom and the darker on top. And you cannot probably see the dialogue that just opened. A little dialogue opens that allows me to pick the color. And so what I'm going to do is for the darker color, I'm going to pick like a darker blue. And for the lighter color, I'm going to pick a lighter blue. Okay, now here's the magic part. What we're going to do... one sec. I forgot to click on my dialog box. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our gradient, you notice that it created a separate layer, and we really want it on this layer. So the way I normally do this, we're going to make that invisible for now. This right here is referred to as a mask, like that's why there's an additional little white box next to this layer. Now I'm going to trash that. Yes, I want to delete the mask because we're going to make one of our own. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our background layer, and I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, or not the eyedropper tool, excuse me, the magic wand, and I'm going to select our sky color. So right now I've selected everything that's sky. Now, I think for Krita, what you would do is under the plus button where you create new things, there's something called a transparency mask, and that's the thing you're going to need to click to do what I'm fixing to do. And in Krita, you may just be able to create gradients on the layer. You used to be able to do that in Photoshop, but now when you create a gradient, it creates as a smart object, so you have to do what I'm doing right now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my gradient, turn it on, and this button, there's a button, I'm not sure if you can see me hovering over it. It looks like a black circle and a white square, and I'm going to click that. It's to the right of FX at the bottom. And just like that, now that's our background. And in my opinion, that looks a little bit better for sky. It's not quite as boring. And you can do the same thing with the sun. I'm not going to, because this is a really quick and dirty art tutorial, but get the idea. And real quick, just to keep things organized, I'm going to take those two layers and I'm going to create a group called sky or environment. We'll do environment. And I'll go ahead and disable that because now we're going to do the same thing with Pikachu. And we're just going to keep in mind that we don't need to draw the environment. So for Pikachu, we're going to start off with his, when you're outlining things, I recommend starting from back to front, meaning that you want to draw the stuff that's in front of things over the stuff that's behind it, because it makes it a tad bit easier when you're outlining stuff. So pretty much that's going to be your yellow. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a darker yellow color, and for darker yellows I always shift more to an orange. I don't put a lot of black in. I don't work in black a lot, just because, like I said before, it tends to be really, really overpowering. And I'm not going to be doing a lot of shading for this. This is going to be pretty flat. I'm mainly just wanting to teach you guys how to do the actual coloring in Photoshop if you want. So we're going to not mess with this because that's going to be the ear. We're only going to be going over the yellow fur. And in a second I'm going to get you guys in chat involved because you're going to pick a color for the scarf. Okay, and that's going to be red, so we're going to stop there. I hear purple for scarf color. It's okay for you. I'm going to be posting this on YouTube, so if you miss something, you can always go back and watch it. So far, purple is winning. Neon blue. Like light blue? Purple and baby blue. How about a purple outline and blue fill? Because that would kind of set up almost like a shimmery fabric. Alright. And real quick, we're going to shift... Oh, something. One sec. I think I may need to redo this. Yes. I don't know why it does it, but every once in a while, Photoshop will do this weird thing where it shifts me from my pencil to brush without me saying to shift to the pencil or brush. It just decides, oh, you want to use the brush all of a sudden. It's okay. I never get angry about having to draw stuff over because it's practice. Polka dots. We can do polka dots. In fact, I'll show you how to do polka dots. There's actually a really easy way to do it. It does involve a Photoshop trick though, so fair warning. But if you guys are going to get fancy on me, I'm going to get fancy back. There we go. Trying to do this both quick and where it doesn't look like crap, which is harder to do than you would think. Okay, and I'm leaving this blank because I forgot to make the little like zigzag on the tail. So we're just leaving it blank because in a minute we're going to add that. Alright, and that's on top so we can, that's on top. So I probably want to hold off, we'll have to come back and do that in a sec. Like I said, you really want to stick to the whole back to front. It will make your life a lot easier if you resist the siren's call to just do everything all in one go. Alright, and we're going to give him a little bit more of a underarm there. Well, yeah, we're going to come down a little bit. So, again, this is kind of the benefit of doing more than one draft, is you'll see teeny little stuff like that that it's like, oh, I can improve that. And so absolutely feel free to, you don't have to just mindlessly trace. Alright. And I'm going to, I notice this foot's kind of wider than the other, so I'm going to take a moment to kind of pull that in a little bit. clean it up a little bit. Clean up is good. And we're going to hold off for a sec. So now what we're going to do is that, like I said, I missed that part that was brown. So I'm going to real quick just see, be careful there. And now make sure that it connects, because otherwise that's going to get us in trouble when we go to fill. Now you can cheat and just use the eyedropper tool to get your color back. Now I can finish this. And I think we're all set up to do the facial features now. Now for the facial features, he's got a black nose. So we can actually, now for black, I normally do, I still don't work in full black. I normally do like a really, really dark blue. Again, black is just really, oh, you absolutely have to cheat in art. Art is about finding little shortcuts to make your life much easier. Okay. Yeah, one of my college professors had a saying, you'd say, fake it until you make it. And so that's, till you learn how to actually do it or understand things, you know, feel free to use little shortcuts and things like filters, or, you know, if you need to pull up a 3D model in Blender and to mirror your perspective or to get the perspective right, don't feel bad about doing that. We all start somewhere. We all start as beginners. No one just picks up a pen and is magically good. Okay, so for the mouth, I believe they did, you know what? Yeah, we're gonna just use the same yellow. At least for the top part. For the bottom part, we're going to, I'm torn because the bottom part's gonna be red. I may do a darker, I think I'm going to do a darker red since the mouth is open. So, what we're going to do is we're going to shift this. For my shading, I kind of use a little bit of color theory. So, whenever you have absence of light, there's more blue. So I always kind of shift my colors a little bit into the blue range. So, in the bottom of the mouth. Okay, like that. And now we're going to steal our yellow color for the top of the mouth. There we go. And we're also going to steal this outline color for the cheeks. That's a good outline color for the cheeks. Same thing here. And I'll have to go back over because I actually needed to do that before I did this. That's okay. Fixed. Easy. Alright. So now we're going to do the scarf. And I'm going to, since we said purple with blue polka dots, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with purple. And like I said, there is a trick I'm going to use to make it polka dotted. Okay, and we're going to make our little lines. Stop it. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to finish drawing our arm. Because we wanted to, see, we want to go over the lines, and there we go, we got it. And so at this point, I think, nope, the ears, which I believe the ears are black. So we're going to use that same color we used for the eyes on the ears. Okay. Make sure it's actually connected. Again, if they are not connected, it's not. You really, really, really want to make sure these colors are connected here, because if they aren't, when you go try to fill it, it's gonna mess you up. There we go. All right. So on the balloon wires. So for the balloon wires, we're going to turn on the environment for a split second. And I'm going to turn off this so I can steal this color. We're going to make it a tad bit darker there and a tad bit lighter there. Perfect. And now we're going to turn off the environment layer and turn this back on. Alright. And then we're going to get our brush. The background was a while ago. I'm guessing you stepped away for a sec. Alright, and just gonna touch up the parts that I just went over. Said just a little bit of touch up. There we go. Alright, so at this point, I believe that we have our outline. So now we're going to start coloring. So for this, I'm just going to shift a little bit, and we're going to just start coloring. Alright, so then for the red parts, first I'm going to do the mouth. Oops, wrong mouth. There we go. And now I'm going to do the cheeks. We're going to lighten those a lot. There we go. And now for the ear tips, those are a lot lighter, like it's more of a gray. Alright. And for the tail, I'm going to get all the littler parts done first, and then we're going to finish up with the fur. Alright, so for the tail, we've got a little bit of a lighter. We don't want to go too, and it does need a little bit of a reddish tint. There we go. And now the purple. Alright, so we're going to do it first before we've got a couple of areas on this which are shaded out, so I'm going to do those first. And then I am going to make this, we're going to go all the way down to 1 pixel, and I said 1 pixel, and very delicately, like that. And now we're going to lighten it a little bit more. Okay. There we go. And finally, we're going to finish off with our Pikachu. And we're going to want to make sure that the fur is more of a yellow. There we go. That should be a good... we have a gap somewhere. I said you have to be very, very careful. At this point I'm going to turn this off because it's going to make it way easier to figure out where in the heck the gap is. There. Oops. Gonna steal my color. And make sure that's actually filled. Alright. And there are probably some pixels, like little 1 pixel things in all this that are, doggone it, there's another gap. We'll address that in a sec. I'm not going to be pixel perfect here, we're just kind of trying to make this quick as possible. There we go. Super quick. There we go. Okay, now there is a gap here somewhere. Right there. So we're gonna color in. There we go. And now, before we do this, we're going to do the polka dots, which I already see some pixels that are nasty. And this one actually I do need because of what we're fixing to do. So, the easy way to do polka dots for this, where is my, we're going to do the outline color, that would be the easier way. There we go. And same thing here, get out of here. Okay. So the easiest way to do polka dots is we're going to, because the problem is you've got folds and everything, you've got multiple colors, so you could very easily spend a long time trying to make that a thing. But the easier way is we're going to create an adjustment layer. And we're going to create a hue saturation. So we're just going to adjust the hue on this. And as you see me adjusting the hue, we're going to find blue. And there it is. So like that color. That's a good color. Now, what we're going to do, because right now everything looks super funky. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take this color, and actually first, I'm going to fix this 1 pixel here that I just noticed is wrong. There we go. But now what we're going to do is I am going to highlight this color, and this color, and once again fix a pixel that I just, we will eventually do this. It's just there's too many stupid little pixels. Alright, we finally got it. Okay, so what we're going to do is, just like the before with the gradient, adjustments have masks. So we're going to delete that. And again, this would be a transparency mask for Krita. For Photoshop, it's a layer mask. So, there. And everything is the same except for this. Now, this is the thing I love about Photoshop, and I believe Krita can do this as well. Nested masking. This is the advanced thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the adjustment in the layer mask, or in the group that I just created. I'm going to move the mask to the group. I'm going to create a new layer mask that's just empty. And now I'm going to invert it. So, now what I'm going to do is I'm on the mask. I'm not on the layer. You want to make sure that the mask is selected. Select the pencil. And I need to make sure that I'm on white. You want to make sure your color is set to white. And now we're just going to start drawing polka dots. I'm going to, there we go, look at that. Look at that. And so now we have a fold here, so what would happen is that would get cut off. So then let's say this is a bigger polka dot. Let's say that we have this, so it would get folded under, and you would end up with something like this. You want to take into account the folds in the fabric when you're doing this. And again, this has to do with what I was talking about earlier with draping. So what's happening is the design is on the handkerchief, and so it's actually going to be impacted by the folds in the fabric. Okay, so color that, and then maybe one, and actually I think that one, we're going to erase this because that one is too close to that one. We want to have them kind of far apart from each other. So like one here. And again, you want to think about this from 3 space as well. So some of these are going to be different angles. Also, let that be a lesson to you if you ever hire someone for a commission and you request a really, really complex pattern and it takes a while on your commission. This is why patterns can be really difficult to work with. That's kind of what I'm doing. I've got an adjustment that I'm using to actually do all this. Now you are right that some people may actually prefer to do it that way. I tend to use a more cartoony or comic look to my stuff. So this is the way I do things. Digital painters have a whole different set of skills that they use. Also, I know if you're using Procreate is a lot better with brushes and stuff because it's designed to be more like a painting program. I know that because I've looked into Procreate before. And I think that's where you start getting stuff like the night sky brushes and like the ocean wave brushes and that kind of stuff. There we go. I think probably one more over here. You don't want to go too crazy with the polka dots, but yeah, Procreate's really cool. I wouldn't mind getting it and learning it. I don't have an iPad or anything, so that's kind of my drawback, but I've been really impressed from what I've seen. And maybe just have like just a hint of a polka dot up there just to show it kind of. Again, you don't want things, this is what I call the Christmas tree problem. So the front of it looks really good, but then you forget to put stuff like this in, and it's kind of like with the Christmas tree to where like the front of it is really well decorated, and then you turn it around, there's like 2 ornaments. Yeah, pretty much. It's the same problem. But yeah, we'll just put a few polka dots just to show that, you know, yeah, there are some on the other side. And now to finish this up, we're going to turn the background back on so that we can see it. There we go. Oh, and we forgot to color in the pupils. But that's super easy to do. All I have to do is we're going to switch our sliders, go to white, and presto, there we go. And ta-da! And that is our How to Draw Pikachu art stream. Could be. We could make the inside of the mouth a little lighter. It's going to look a little bit flat until you shade it, which I'm not going to do on this stream. But there we go. But that is our stream, and I'll be posting this on YouTube momentarily, so if you did have to step away or anything, then then it's no problem. Just I'll make sure to post the link. It should actually post if you're on my Discord. It should post automatically. If you're not on my Discord and you're seeing this on YouTube or somewhere else, please, I'll make sure to put the Discord link in the description on the video. Please feel free to join. I'll try to do more streams like this in the future. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you all go on to make beautiful, beautiful Pikachus because of it. Till next time, thank you very much for watching, and if you are seeing this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Take care.